Living in the suburbs is unsustainable. It's not what most people think it is. So this past weekend, we drove down to see my folks down outside of Chicago, and it's so funny because we've noticed over the years, shortly after we got married, we would go out to my parents' lake house a lot. And as we would drive, we would realize that the tension that we were holding on to subconsciously would just slowly disappear until it was gone. And since we've moved up here, we've noticed that we get tense around Madison for good reason. Tense around like Janesville, Beloit, Rockford, and then it eases up again until we get to about like Huntley, Marengo area, and it just continues in that it's not necessarily stress, but just you're just so tense the entire time you're down there. And it's just insane. We don't have that tenseness when we're back here at home or when we're out at the lake. It's it's something else. So growing up, it was always I wanted to be a doctor. My dream from the time I was really little was to be a pediatric urologist at Children's Memorial Hospital, which is now Lurie Children's Hospital in Chicago. I thought that I would go to college, medical school, and then become a doctor in the city. And I was going to live in the city because it was a city. It was where everybody was. It's where everything happens. It was busy. It was popular. The bright lights, the nightlife, all of it. And when I got older and I started working, I was kind of like, yeah, I don't really want to live in the city. Granted, most of the money making jobs are still down in Chicago. If you can get in with the corporations in the suburbs, then yeah, you can make a decent dollar. But for the most part, you're not going to be making more like six figures and more working in the suburbs. So if you really wanted the money, you'd have to get a job downtown. I got my job downtown. I was an in-house paralegal for a financial services firm, and I worked there for 5 years. I would get up at 4 in the morning, so I could be on the train by 6 because I was not then, and I still am not a morning person. And I'd be on the train between 6 and 6:30, depending which train I was taking, which station, and where I was living at the time. And I wouldn't get home until 6 o'clock at night. So I'd get home. I've already been up for 14 hours, and I'm exhausted. And I'd be in bed by 8:30. So I'd have 2.5 hours at home with my folks before I got married, and then with my husband, and then with Mr. Man once I had him. After I had Mr. Man, I cut back to working 2 days a week. I went downtown Tuesdays and Thursdays. My folks watched Mr. Man, and my dad drove me to and from the train station, which is really nice. So I didn't have to drive myself and pay for parking. But if I wanted to stay down there and I wanted to continue working, I would have had to put Mr. Man into childcare 5 days a week. My parents, I would not make them watch him 5 days a week as much as I would enjoy it. I didn't want them watching my child 5 days a week. I do not want somebody else raising my child. I don't want to be away for 12 hours a day missing my baby. And honestly, the majority of the money that either myself or Squatch would have made would have gone to daycare, would have gone to childcare. And as we were driving around, we were looking at some of these homes. And the house that we currently live in, our little red house, is like 90% identical to the house that I grew up in. The only difference is this house has a basement, so it's got a slightly different layout because all of the appliances, like the washer, dryer, furnace, hot water heater, they're all in the basement. And I have stairs to get down there because we didn't have those at my house growing up. This same house in the suburbs is almost 3 times what my house is currently worth up here, and we bought it on a single income. That would not be possible down in the suburbs. Um, you would like to afford these homes, like these tiny little starter homes are starting at 3 to $400,000. And they're not even tiny little starter homes. They're like giant McMansions from the 90s because people started updating their little homes, and there were so many that were torn down in the late 90s to mid 2000s, and these monstrosities built on the lots. And I looked at it and I was like, this sucks. I don't want this. I don't Why would I want to do that? Yes, the convenience is nice. You have lots of healthcare options, good healthcare options, lots of food options. I mean, we picked up donuts through the drive-through at Dunkin' Donuts on Sunday after Mass, and the boys were like, "You can get donuts at the drive-through? Why don't we have that by us, Mama?" We do, but we just haven't taken them to Dunkin' Donuts. We get our donuts at Krispy Kreme because they're better than Dunkin'. But there's so many options out there for food. And like I was telling Scott, because we were talking about this as we were driving to pick up our Limonati's deep dish on Monday night. Oh, that was delicious. He says, I miss the options. And I said, yeah, there's so many options, but there are too many options. I couldn't tell you the number of times that we'd be like, oh, we're hungry. We really don't want to cook. What do we want? And then we'd sit there for another like 20 to 30 minutes before we even decided what we wanted. And then the traffic. I went out at 10 o'clock, no, like 11:30 on Monday with my folks and the boys to take them to a couple parks. The sheer amount of traffic at 11 o'clock on a Monday morning was insane. I mean, there's just no need for it, and everybody's speeding around. Even when we were driving on the highway, people were doing 90 plus, speeding past us, as I was doing well over the speed limit as it was. I mean, the sense of urgency that you really don't need because everybody's running late. They don't add that extra 15 minutes in to get ready to make sure that they get to where they're going on time. Just insane, you guys. Just completely insane. And as we were talking, we said it's not what we grew up with. So many people they miss the good old days. And I mean, I'd get up when I was Mr. Man's age. I was 6, 7 years old. I'd get up and say, "Mom, I'm gonna ride my bike over to Shelly's house." And it would be okay. Call me when you get there, and then call me when you come home. And I'd ride my bike the like mile and a half to 2 miles to her house, call my folks, and then I'd be there. We'd ride our bikes around the neighborhood. We'd go to a park. There was no parental supervision. You can't do that anymore. You can't do that in the suburbs. It's it's so sad. And as much as I wish that my children could have that, I know they're not going to. And we don't necessarily have that here in the sticks, here in our small country town, but what we have is better. It's just better. We can afford to have one of us stay home and the other one work, that we can get the home, not the home that we wanted. I mean, we both would have been happy with a completely different house than we have, but when we were trying to buy, I mean, it sucked. So we got what we could. But it's not that un it is unrealistic. It's unrealistic. Living in the suburbs is unrealistic. And I wouldn't do it. I don't ever see us going back to a suburban life. There's no way in hell you'll ever find us living in the city. But we're not going to the suburbs. We're just not going to do it. We're not going to give up the the slower pace of life, the ease that we have here, the lack of stress. Not for all the conveniences in the world. You know what? I miss Chick-fil-A. I miss Portillo's. I miss Panda Express. I can drive to the cities. It's 2.5 hours. I can go to Minneapolis and get my Portillo's. I can drive the hour-ish down to Eau Claire and I can get Chick-fil-A. I can get Panda. But that's when it becomes a treat, you know? You shouldn't be doing that stuff every day. You shouldn't be eating all that junk anyway. Here's looking at you, RFK. But yeah, it's unrealistic, and I think people just still have the idyllic 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s suburbs in their minds when they think about it, and it's never going to be that way again. I don't know. What do you think? Do you live in the suburbs, city, super rural on a farm, or in a small little country town? What's it like there? Do you like where you're at, or would you change it? Can't wait to find out more. Bye, guys.